Hello everyone, this is SWTOR Snoopy here, back with another discussion. Today, we're going to be talking about team communication, and more specifically, why it's important in both PvE and PvP. Now, I personally believe that using comms in video games is very important for coordination, learning, and for having a more enjoyable experience. However, some players feel that using the chat box causes toxic encounters or chatting is pointless and doesn't accomplish anything. As talking through situations and planning can lead to huge success, I thought that it would be interesting to discuss why team communication is key and how typing even a few simple phrases can heavily affect the outcome of things within SWTOR. These discussions are laid back, so this is based on my personal experiences and is used as a way to get the ball rolling. I will also have talking points on the screen and in the description down below. This will allow you guys to jump to a particular point that I discuss in the video. Anyways, that's all I have for this intro, so let's jump right into this. Alrighty guys, so let's start with this first talking point, and that is PvE speaking up. So I group all these kind of combined ideas together for PvE, but the reason I think team communication is incredibly important no matter what PvE type of content you do is because if you're a player that doesn't know what they're doing, you can speak up to your fellow teammates and let them know what the scoop is. You can possibly take on the role of a leader, just guiding new players into some of the newer content, and or just helping them out with some scary boss mechanics. And you can also help mitigate situations. You can also do stuff as simple as talking about mechanics, gear, and rotations to help with the whole team composition. And all these have the same thing in common, that simply talking about these type of things can help the whole team. I think the biggest example is definitely when you're a player that doesn't know how the content is, or that you haven't done something and you speak up to your team. Because I've seen times where I say grade groups have wiped on bosses because somebody didn't know what was happening and then they had issues. And I'll be the first to admit that I've done this mistake myself. I remember that I did Nightmare Mode Dread Fortress, and I had no clue about a certain boss mechanic, I believe on the final boss, Brontes, and I just completely screwed stuff up, and then our whole group wiped. But I was willing to completely own up to that mistake, and I wasn't aware, and I tried to, like I said, kind of be a learner and just help out. Because at the end of the day, I think that was the big hard-hitting lesson for me, is I thought that I knew the whole mechanics for the operation bosses, or rather that particular operation boss, and that completely screwed everything up, and I felt really bad. But I feel like that was my big wake-up call, and it really started to show me that team communication can make a huge difference. Because after then, whenever I'm not 100% certain on something, even if I'm pretty sure I know everything, I always make sure to mention it to the group and or just ask for essentially clarification. And the same can be said for gear rotations and whatnot, because if you're doing some PvE content, then it's important to let that information be known to your group. And it can also be something as simple as just running over mechanics. I know that a lot of people don't like when groups run over mechanics for the same operation that somebody's done tens of hundreds of times, but I feel like especially it can be useful to that person who's new, and it can also be pretty useful. That's why sometimes when people will voice concerns and I'm trying to run something as simple as, say, a story mode operations in the group finder, and they don't know something, I always try to help it in the whispers, because I feel like that's important, because it can help your group. Because at the end of the day, people want to succeed in this content, and wiping for unnecessary things can definitely ruin the morale of a team. And that's why I think team communication is key in PvE, and why you should always practice it and always focus on it when the time is necessary. Because again, like I said, I always tend to go back to that example of Nightmare Mode Dread Fortress, because my own mistake cost the whole entire group essentially just that complete wipe, and I felt really bad about it. but I learned from that lesson, and I realized that team communication can really change everything up, because since then I've asked people for clarification, and even if I do think I know everything, if I'm not 100% familiar, I always do that because I do want to make sure I don't cause an issue with the team. And again, it also helps because when you talk about these things in the group before a fight, you make sure that everyone is completely certain on what to do and no unnecessary mistakes happen. So that's my main talking point for the PvE, just based on some personal experiences. And the next one is going to be PvP, help yourself, help your team. So talking in both unranked and ranked PvP, it can completely change the game. The biggest examples is calling incoming to nodes, explaining tactics in ranked with stuns, guards, nets, etc., encouraging team play, boosting morale, and all of that good stuff. And in PvE, or PvP, I think that chat is, I would say honestly, arguably, it's more important in PvP, way more than it is in PvE, because it's simply typing something and or a simple phrase can completely change it up. And the biggest thing that I think anyone can agree with is calling incoming to nodes is by far the biggest example of team communication, and rather is the most simplistic of all of them. Because even if you don't want to talk in the chat, if you're afraid of toxicity, which even then at the same time you're bound to get people being toxic from time to time, but still, if you're afraid of things in the game, it's always important that if you're, for example, just guarding a node, to call the incoming, because you can help your team and also help them realize the stuff that's going on. And then also in ranked PvP, talking about tactics of who you're going to go after, who you're going to stun, and etc. really can change your game. Because I mean, if you go into a group, say for example you're in ranked PvP, and you don't really talk about any tactics, you're just like, okay, we're going to focus this guy and that's basically it, then sometimes you can succeed. But at the same time, if you don't have a game plan going in about, switching guards, who you're going to go after, are you going to focus the healer, are you going to stun lock this guy, it's like timing things as simple as that can change the whole entire outcome of a game. And even though it's unranked PvP and ranked PvP, they're two completely different ballparks, it doesn't mean you have to always talk in unranked PvP and be a team coordinator, but rather if some things aren't working, it can always be good to try and suggest stuff, because it's crazy, especially in unranked PvP, that what a simple suggestion can do. Because there's even times where I've seen people have very, very low morale and they aren't really willing to do anything, but someone suggested in the chat a simple tactic. I want to say like Void Star, because I see this often in Void Star war zones, is where people are just hammering down on one door and they aren't succeeding. And then someone just says something as simple as, oh hey, we're going to get the stealthers, we're going to have them go on this side, we're going to try to bring as many people over here as you can to cause a distraction. And sometimes it works. I mean, that's probably not the best example, but I think that's something that really shows that simple team communication can make a huge difference. And I mainly say this because I know that a lot of people are afraid of people being mean in PvP chat. But unfortunately, such is life. The good news is that there is an ignore button if it gets too hectic. But I would say, honestly, not to really worry about that stuff, and to really just focus on your gameplay and helping the whole team. Because I feel like at the end of the day, everyone does want to win. And by working together and doing some just simple stuff, it really can help everyone. So I say that's just about it for that second talking point for PvP. And then my third one is make a difference. And this mainly goes to the player, you, the people who are watching this, and also just people in game in general. I think that a lot of players, and I feel like I don't want to speak for other players, but I know with me in particular, I don't always want to be the team communicator. I know that there's some times where I just want to, relax, play the game, not really have too many worries. But at the same time, just incorporating team communication and focusing on your chat from time to time can really make your game a much more enjoyable experience. and it can also just help out with all the different game modes. Because at the end of the day, just simply chatting can help you succeed in that nightmare mode raid, and then talking in that PvP match can really change the whole entire outcome. But a lot of people don't seem to focus on this, because the main thing is you don't have to just write paragraphs and become the ultimate helper in SWTOR, because I know that a lot of people don't really want to do that. They just want to game and have fun, and I can completely respect that and understand that. But still, just utilizing even things as simple as a couple words or phrases in PvP matches can also help your whole team, and it can help yourself. And then in PvE, something as simple as speaking up when you're having issues can also help your team, because it will reduce the wipes. I think the main thing I want to drive home is that I feel like every player can make a difference, and everyone can really just work on this. But anyways, that's all I have for that talking point. So we're going to finally go into our conclusion. So I believe team communication is key, because it can change the whole entire outcome of the game. It can help boost morale in teammates, and it can help something go much smoother. I think a lot of people don't really consider the fact that chatting in games and working on team comp and strategy can change the whole entire outcome of a game. And I can understand that, because it really is a small thing. But I really want to let people know, and or just really talk this out, as I know that there are some players out there who don't want to always chat, and or they're afraid to, because they think they might cause problems by doing so. But I definitely want to stress, I can't stress it enough to those players that talking in the chat is not that big of an issue, and it really can help everybody out. And I always like using that PvE example, because something as simple as that, it not only taught me a lesson myself, but it also just helped out the team, because we didn't have any issues afterwards. Because it could have been something as simple as I messed up and I didn't tell anyone, and then everyone's really confused about what happened, and then we just go again, and then we fail, and then people are just still confused, and then you just get kind of this endless cycle. But something as simple as that can really change everything, and that's why I wanted to make this video, because I feel like it is an important thing to discuss. So that's going to be it for this discussion. If you guys are interested in commenting down below on your personal thoughts and or experiences, that would be very much appreciated. But thanks again to everyone for the support recently. It has been really awesome. But yeah, that's going to be it for this discussion. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one.